Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm audible from the back. Can everybody hear me? Great. Thank you very much. I see we have people that are still coming through. Unfortunately, I guess the plenary session went a bit over time. But welcome. We really, really appreciate you being here, because without you, I guess this discussion wouldn't be happening. So welcome to our 8th biannual conference, which starts today, and we're still here tomorrow. As we've mentioned, there's a number of showcasings that we're having, and there's a number of delegates that are here. So this is also a networking session. Take it and ensure that you meet the person next to you, share cards, or these days it's QR codes. Share QR codes. Let's meet and let's collaborate, because that's what this session is all about. Let's collaborate and making sure that collaboration takes us further than where we are. So today I have very experienced panelists, and I'll be introducing them shortly. So they will be addressing, I'm saying they because, I'll be posing questions to them and they will be answering, given obviously, the experience in the mining industry. So we'll be addressing innovation gaps in the mining sector, and we'll be having a discussion around a number of topics. And then following that, it will be your, open time for you to please pose questions to our panelists to ensure that we walk away from this session with what then, because it's all and well for us to have discussions, but I think the essence of this is for us to find solutions that are implementable. So the CSIR's new strategy has identified high impacted sectors in which South Africa could carve out competitive advantage, stimulating overall socioeconomic growth, of which mining is one. And I would like to now introduce our panelists, starting with Moshibudi. So Moshibudi holds a BSc in mining engineering from the University of Witwatersrand, as well as a master in management and finance and investment. Shibu, as she's well known, she has extensive experience in underground and surface coal mining. She's passionate about women in mining, and I'm hoping that with some of the questions she will be addressing, how then do we get more women in the sector? She has not only passion in women in mining, but also has a passion around digital and automation, which recently saw her named the Modernization Hero by the Minerals Council. She's currently the manager in mining development at Exxaro mine, where she leads a team of engineers responsible for mine design and mining process improvements through digitization and automation. Welcome, Shibu. Thank you. Yes. Secondly, we have Bongani Buthelezi. Bongani holds a master's in metallurgical engineering, as well as several qualifications in management. He has extensive experience in iron ore and heavy minerals, mining industry, and he's currently a COO, Chief Operating Officer at Fraser Alexander. He joined the executive team after having successfully handled the mineral processing general manager role. And prior to this, Bongani was at Anglo American, so I know Bongani from Anglo. Welcome, Bongani. Thirdly, we have Lebo Masekela. Lebo studied engineering at University of Witwatersrand. He's a technology entrepreneur who has worked in diverse industries, including mining, engineering, defense, rail, and information technology. He is involved in the launch and management of innovative companies in vehicle tracking, electricity, smart metering, management, as well as mobile payment technology. He has more than 30 years of high technology management experience at both middle and senior management, including at director level. So welcome, Lebo. Thank you. And then we have Sietse, Woude. Sietse has a master's degree in radiation and physics and an MBA qualification. He has over 20 years of extensive experience in the mining industry, having worked in mining companies such as Exxaro. And since 2015, he's been serving as a senior executive for modernization and safety at the Minerals Council. And his purpose remains to help facilitate a people-centered modernization. Thank you, Sietse. All right. So, starting with you, Bongani. Mining, I guess now ESG has become topical. Circular economy has become topical. Decarbonization has become topical and has been prioritized by the industry in recent years. What role should RDI play in contributing to accelerating this drive?
No, thanks a lot for the question. I think that there's definitely quite a big scope that research, development, and innovation should play here. If you just maybe look at, from a social as well as environmental perspective, we've got a challenge where the mining houses have got a legacy where, they come, with their primary activity being to mine and, cause a damage to environment and leave. And we've got an opportunity where RDI can play a very key role here to change that legacy or to change that perception, which has been a negative perception in the sector, wherein, latest technologies can be developed to ensure that the environment is left, in the same way that it was found, and even more profound, left, even in a better state, where, those pieces of land could be developed for other types of economies, such as agriculture, and so forth, making sure that we address, the social ills that, our country is facing. And that's only on the social, environmental part, but also on safety side, which I think Sietse will cover more on. There's definitely a lot of scope where RDI can ensure that we remove people from harm, because as we know that the mining environment is really faced with sometimes where people are exposed to danger and hazardous environment, where we can now remove people from harm and ensure that we don't have fatalities, we don't have injuries in the industry, and at the same time being productive. So certainly, in those two areas, there's certainly a lot of scope, not only in productivity, as I said, but ensuring that we cover all the aspects of social and environment that are key in our success for our country.
Thank you. Thanks, Bongani. So, as we talk about, as you mentioned, zero harm safety, Shibu, in your experience at Grootegeluk with Exxaro, how is this panning out?
Yeah, I think in the context of mining in general, we will continue to use coal-fired power stations. And obviously, coming from a coal background, I will talk about coal. So I think the big thing that RDI can contribute in that environment is really getting to processes that will release less emissions, because I think we are well aware that we cannot just in the next 5 years shut down our power stations. We've seen in Germany currently they are reinstating old mines, because obviously the energy crisis has caused for that to happen. But I think in the operations as well, continuous, research around alternative energy in the form of solar to power our equipment on site. And in addition to that, we're using, in surface mines, obviously there's a lot of trucking that's going on, that's diesel emissions. We can get into alternative fuel so that we can continuously reduce our emissions into the industry. Into the environment as we produce our coal to power the power stations. And I think that's what we've been busy with, trying to get to know what the OEMs are busy with. And I think it's an opportunity for, the local research areas to also, investigate what can we do in terms of the fuel space and as well as the alternative energy.
Thanks, Shibu. Just prompting you on that, Lebo. So in the OEM space, what opportunities are you seeing, and what gaps are you seeing that could be filled by RDI there?
So the the things that drive innovation and research and development in the OEM space are the competitive factors, the competitive environment in which the OEMs found themselves in. There's issues of productivity, there's issues of safety, and of course the issues of cost as well. So research and development and innovation in that space help to reduce cost, and there's also pressures from shareholders for the OEMs to comply with ESG in the ESG space. Yeah.
Right. Sietse, coming to you from an industry perspective. So, what are those opportunities that you're seeing that RDI will play, and probably there are also gaps that you would like to maybe highlight to get to a net zero harm, because we talk of net zero harm in the industry.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bongi, and good morning to everybody in the room and the panelists. What we're hearing all the time now is from CEOs saying that in the past, 20% of the annual general meeting was about ESG issues, and 80% was about the finances, the profit, the costs, and all those kind of things. And that has materially changed just in the last few years, dramatically changed. Now it's exactly the opposite. So 80% of the questions at the annual general meeting is about ESG issues, and 20% about the rest. And so I think we have to take these things extremely, extremely seriously. I call this the capital license to operate. You know, if you want to start a mine, you need to have a regulatory license. You've got to get that from DMRE. Then we've now learned to live with that you need a social license to operate, where you make sure that in the community where the mine will be, that, you know, they're going to get a benefit also from the mine. But this capital license to operate, money talks. And I think when people see that this could affect the way in which they get able to raise capital, the way in which they're able to get the best possible talent, it is a huge challenge that we all need to look at. I mean, we've seen examples in the last 2 years. You've seen the tailings dam failure in Vale, was in Brazil. We've had our own one. There was one person who lost their lives. In Brazil, there was hundreds of people. Massive impact on Vale, their share price, and the way in which they are reputationally perceived. So that is one example. The other one was one of the mining companies, Rio Tinto, where there was a destruction of the heritage site. Hundreds of years old heritage site that couldn't be replaced. Same story. Major challenges and huge impact on everybody. So I think this is our challenge in South Africa as well as it is all over the world. But I think there's a monumental opportunity for us in this. We've got a very unique blend of three things for me. The one is that we got a lot of resources in terms of this futural minerals or critical minerals as they are called. Rare earths, platinum group metals, all of those fall in that category. So we have a lot of those resources. That's number one. So we have the mineral resources. Secondly, we've got humongous. So I want to come back to this opportunity. So we've got high level of resources in these minerals that are critical to the future. So that is our one opportunity. The secondly is this ginormous environmental and social issues that we have. I mean, we know that we are the country with the highest inequality in the world. Youth unemployment, it is frightening to see what those numbers are. So we have those challenges. And then at the same time, we've got the smartest people in the world to actually help solve those challenges. There's not many countries that have that unique blend. Some may have difficult problems, not the people to solve it, and so on. We've got that in South Africa, and I absolutely believe that just as on the rugby side we can be world champions as Springboks, we can also in mining, ESG friendly and purpose mining, we can also be the local of the world champions, and that is only going to happen if we get the RD&I and we collaborate through all the different stakeholders. Absolutely crucial role in realizing that opportunity. Thank you.
Wow, I think well said, Sietse. You're talking to the silver lining. As people see clouds, but there is that we do have a unique opportunity for us to grow and grow beyond the South African borders. Which brings me to my second question. So we've heard about the correlation between RDI investment and socioeconomic growth. I think as our chairperson was ending off, he spoke to that. Now I would like to ask you to highlight to us where you've seen a sort of practical RDI opportunities and maybe gaps, if there are, that should be closed by RDI that will ensure that there is that socioeconomic growth. So let me start with you, Bongani. Again.
No, that's fine. Thanks a lot for the question. My belief is, especially because we know that in the country we've got quite a lot of social disparities, and this is the issue that as we continue, it's an issue that we can no longer ignore, going forward. And as I said earlier, it's time now that as mining companies we start involving communities, because previously, yes, we had social plans and all these things, where communities should benefit, but we have not had plans where, communities are sharing in the benefit, of mining activity. As I said, that you find that mining houses are extracting, and yes, communities may get small businesses here and there as part of the social plan, but I think we've got an opportunity where we've got quite a lot of dams around the country. We've seen with the issue of Jagersfontein, but we've got quite a lot of dams where DMRE is quite stretched, in ensuring that some of the dams you don't even know who the owners are. But I think this creates an opportunity where we can bring in the communities, where the communities can have some ownership, for a change in the mining industry, while at the same time, using technologies that can be developed, through organizations such as CSIR, to come up with ways of extracting whatever values remain in there, so that the communities can benefit, and at the same time removing that environmental liability that creates a problem for us, because we all know that some of the dams may not have been built, to the best standards that we're now having. Seeing what we've now had. I mean, the example that Sietse mentioned in Brazil, I mean, the dam that collapsed was a facility that was already closed off, that was not active, So this now creates that opportunity to say, for us to remove this liability. At the same time, how do the communities now start having a real benefit, not just, small business here and there, but real benefit, of owning something when it comes to the sources. So I think this really creates an opportunity where business plus communities plus the regulator can come together and see if we can find a solution to ensure that this happens. We cannot leave it and ignore it and hope that it will come on its own. This really requires collaboration from all the fronts to ensure that we address these ills.
No, thanks, Bongani. I think we talk of collaboration and capability development, which is another point. And Shibu, in your experience, how are you seeing RDI playing a role with regards to addressing socioeconomic issues and growth, sustainable growth, and the women in mining?
Yeah,
How are we getting more women in
I
mining?
think to what you're saying in terms of socioeconomic issues, sometimes it's brought about inequal opportunities. So research, development, and technology has come to a point where we find that jobs are made much easier, and therefore it creates an inclusivity that such that you can have more women coming in. So in essence, you're dealing with the issue of unemployment because of being limited, but what you can be able to do. We are seeing jobs being made easier. We are seeing different types of types of roles coming out of mining that are not dependent on your physical ability, but more rely on your mental capability. So that is going to be able to retain women in the industry, because we found that a lot of times women leave because obviously they're restricted with their physical capability, and at some point in their lives, obviously they want to have children. And coming to that as well, obviously with COVID, we've seen that technology has forced us to go virtual. And I think there presents an opportunity for us to be comfortable with, a way of work that is different from the past, where I don't have to be physically on site and I can continue to do my job. And that way we can continue to retain the women in the industry. And I think to add to what Bongani was saying in terms of rehabilitation, I believe there's a gap in terms of, should we not be researching or getting more information about the dumps in terms of what is the content in there? What can we do to get to, plantation level, such that we can use that as well to get to a net zero? So that's what I think.
There's a challenge, CSIR. I hope you guys are listening. So coming to capability development, I think quite a challenging point, Lebo, where we find global OEMs not investing in South Africa, not investing RDI in South Africa, but hence being very much involved in terms of revenue generation from our South African companies. So in your mind, how then do we shift some of that RDI investment into South Africa?
I think there's opportunities to work with local OEMs and global OEMs. So there's unique problems that are posed in our mining environment. Issues of safety, for instance. There's a project now that is on the go in terms of collision prevention. And we want to eliminate the interaction or accidents between people and machines. And there's been a number of collaborations between local OEMs and global OEMs in that space. So it's a start. There's more opportunities. I mean, if I take, for instance, it's not possible for the mines as a start to employ all the local people. They can only employ so many, but the mines have got access to, say, land, which can be used for agriculture. And if we train the youth in terms of maintaining mining equipment, these have got similar use in the agricultural space. So the skills that we develop in the mining environment can be used in the agricultural environment. So there's opportunities for symbiotic working together, and of course the use of the machines now, it's very advanced. As you know, the mines are getting deeper and deeper and deeper, so safety becomes an issue, and there's opportunities there to use the technologies that the minister was referring to in terms of 4IR and so on, so that we safeguard the lives of people, not send people into dangerous environments, but send machines into those environments. So I think there's a start that has happened. It's very encouraging, and there's opportunities that we should work together with between local OEMs and global OEMs.
Okay, so we should see investment coming. Looking forward to that. To you, Sietse. So, what has been the investment strides in relation to building South Africa's mining RDI and innovation ecosystem? And what do you recommend would be a great pathway for us to, build this ecosystem in building our RDI, in rebuilding our RDI capabilities?
I want to speak about the Mandela Mining Precinct. This is a public-private partnership, and it's the largest RDI public-private partnership in the country. And it's completely aligned with what has been said in the opening session, where both the minister and the CEO spoke about the white paper on science and innovation. One of the things in there is talking about modernizing existing industries, including mining. And this Mandela Mining Precinct has, in a very short space of time, grown to be the largest. And the GG has also said this is the blueprint of what we want to see in other sectors as well. So we're very proud to be associated with that. So the investment, there's co-investment between the government and the Minerals Council. So the government makes an investment, and then Minerals Council makes investment. And then in terms of the co-managing, the CSIR manages on behalf of the government of DSI. And then the Minerals Council manages on behalf of its members. So we are very proud to be associated with that. If you look at the last 5 years, we spent there was an investment of more than 400 million rand. So, yeah, so it is a very significant investment that both the government and the private sector are making. Whenever you establish an institution, that's lots of things that need to be put in place. There's some serious growing pains, and the CSIR has absolutely just been a pleasure in working through those issues so that we can have unhindered investment in that. So Mandela Mining Precinct, one of the key things there is looking at human capability and capacity development. And it is wonderful when you get all the stakeholders together, from the suppliers, Lebo, you get the mining companies, a range of mining companies. You've got the unions are part of that initiative, and so there's a broad range of stakeholders. But critically, the one is to build the bridge between the CSIR as one of the institutions and the universities, bridge the gap with industry, because both of them need to work collaboratively to come up with the right solutions. So what we're really grateful for CSIR is that we knew that we've dropped the ball as a nation on this RD&I skills and capacity, and we knew we had to address that particular issue, but it was a question, how do we go about it? So we asked the CSIR whether they would be willing to do a pilot study looking at the capability and capacity that they have only in the mining cluster. And I must say, it was just phenomenal work that Bongi and her team did to make sure that we get to that pilot study. And we could say at the end of that pilot study, okay, now we can move to the next level and understand what is the capability and capacity in the whole CSIR. I mean, it's so humbling to hear this morning the minister talking about all these things that are being done through the CSIR. Really, it is amazing. So, Bongi, I'm sure the investment, I think the one thing that we have to address in terms of the investment, we have to have effective investment through the whole mining value chain. At the moment, we have Council for Geoscience that looks at the exploration. We've got Mintech that looks at the processing, and then, you know, CSIR with Mandela Mining Precinct needs to look at the extraction, minerals extraction process. And we need to make sure that there's effective investment in that as we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Sietse, and thank you for you know, the support that you continue to offer to the CSIR and all of us as stakeholders. Just in closing, I would like our panelists to also just touch on how do we build the ecosystem, and also what investment strides can we, or investment opportunities can we look at to build our RDI ecosystem. Bongani?
Yeah, from my side, I think I mentioned it earlier that you know, we cannot now function in silos, and that means that you know, if you use an organization like CSIR, who's got the capability of research, you know, and another mining house that's got the funding to do R&D, you know, to be best placed, you know, to channel some of the funds to the experts. You know, I think that those are the collaborations that we keep on talking about, to say, you know, that will be money well spent instead of trying to do this internally where you're not an expert. So I think that's one way of ensuring that we get the benefit from that. And I think Sietse touched on it earlier, to say, you know, from my experience being in Fraser, we're realizing, you know, especially in the recent years, that the investors that usually gave us money to do projects, you know, they are more inclined and, you know, into more social, you know, to say, you know, if we give you this 100 million, and yes, you're going to build a plant or you're going to build a mining operation, show us the ESG impact. I think 2 years ago, it was more about what legacy are you leaving behind. But of recent, it's about what benefit are you adding over and above that you know. So it's no longer about the financial metrics anymore, but it's about, you know, are you leaving a positive impact, you know, while doing that. And I think, you know, we've got no choice as the mining industry, but to really fundamentally change in how we're doing business. That is no longer numbers, but it's more about sustainability, you know, in the long term. So I think the quicker we catch up and making sure that these becomes scorecards, yes, you know, in our organizations, because yes, we find that these things are talked about in the general meetings, they're talked about in the board meetings, but you know, for instance, it needs to become a scorecard in the procurement. For instance, to say when that procurement person, you know, procures some services, you know, are all those things ticking, instead of just looking at costs and saying, I'm getting this cheaply, you know, is this person that's supplying this service, you know, having a positive social impact in the community, is improving employment, is he, you know, touching on all those things, and costs, yes, becomes the last. You know, the latest thing that's going to come, obviously, is the green economy, to say, you know, whatever service you do, you know, how much emissions are you generating? So all those things, as I say, they need to become part of the scorecards, you know, in the business, to ensure that this is not just the talk that ends up in the board meetings and annual general meetings, but it becomes the way of doing lives, doing things in our lives throughout the mining sector.
Thanks, Bongani. And I think you almost thread, you know, that golden a line between RDI and socioeconomic impact, because if you're talking about sustainability, and, you know, getting a person or getting services from a community, they ought to be having some skills to be able to provide those services. So capability development is key. Thank you to that. Shibu?
Yeah, I think what Bongani said is very important. What we typically do with where I work is, if we're doing this acquiring of really big projects, we do in the scorecard have that the implementation needs to be really done by local people, some parts of it. Obviously, there's specialized work, but to get the skills, like you're saying, to develop, you really need to get your community involved in the projects that you are doing, and that in future they can be the ones that are coming up with these developments. Yeah, so that's how I think we can continuously, bring it in. But to another point for me would be, for the big companies to consider startups, because they move around in different industries, and with those learnings, they can bring to mining a different perspective to solving problems.
Great. Thinking of startups, Lebo, how do we bring in startups into the value chain?
Yeah. So there's a number of ways that can be done. I must maybe say that the OEMs, sometimes we brush them with one brush, but there's actually differences in that. Some of them have got extensive design, engineering, and manufacturing facilities in South Africa. Others have got production and, say, servicing facilities, and others just import into the local environment. So there's opportunities right across to work with the OEMs. One thing that the OEMs bring is a global perspective. So as a country, we shouldn't just be looking at import replacement, but I think there's opportunities there to tap into the global supply chains and ensure that we can export, because I think that's where industrialization can really make an impact. But to your question, one of the things that unfortunately happened with COVID is that some of the programs that the OEMs had, like participating in the Black Industrialists program, where the Black industrialists would be brought in and taken to the factories overseas so that we can see the impact and the scale at which you need to operate in a global environment. And I mentioned that collision environment, the collision prevention product that's going to be installed in the big machines. There's an opportunity there because South Africa is a leader in that environment. South Africa can export that technology overseas and the products themselves. Some of the initiatives that the OEMs have done is to supply equipment at discounted rates to local entrepreneurs, funding of the machines, the training and environment of entrepreneurs. So we see our responsibility not just in supplying machines, but in participating in the local economy as well. An initiative that is very encouraging is that we have what we call a wealth creation index. So before we participate in an initiative, we take the measurements of the ESG factors in that environment, and our involvement in that community over time. The index must show that there's wealth that's created and wealth that's transferred into the community as well. So these are the initiatives that the OEMs are taking. Yeah.
Thank you, Lebo. And I think very important point that you've just mentioned in terms of expanding beyond South Africa, because as we have it, that an unemployment rate beyond or above 30%, to grow our economy outside South Africa, to be able to export services and skills. Sietse, your parting thoughts?
Yeah, I want to come back to my so it's not a new thought, but just to re-emphasize it again. But I really believe that we've got a monumental opportunity is 3 reasons. The one is that we've got resources that are critical to the future of the world. critical to mobile phones, critical to green technologies, electric vehicles, all those things. None of those things can happen without mining. So mining is absolutely critical for that. A lot of it we've got to figure out as we go along, and that's where the RDI will be very, very important. But so that is the one aspect. The other aspect is that we've got these phenomenal problems. And I know sometimes, we can feel despair about all the challenges that we have to deal with. But there's a huge hope that can come out of that. If we can get those problems solved, like Lebo mentioned on the collision prevention systems, it is one of the most complex technical systems that we've had in a long time being introduced in our industry. And together with the OEMs, CSIR and others, we are working together to make this happen. So it's the mineral resources critical for the future. It is the very challenging problems from which we can learn a lot. And then very importantly, that if I look at this room and hear to what we've heard to date, we've got the smartest people on this planet to solve these problems. So I think the investment, we've got to make the investment. It's not a cost. We expect a return on that. And whether that return may not be economic, but better environmental, social, and governance performance. Thank you.
I think that brings the end of our discussion. We'll open up for questions from the floor.
Hi. Yeah, hi, John Murphy, Blitz Detect, an innovative latest technology lightning detection system, important for mining. As you can probably hear, I'm originally Irish. So on Sietse on Saturday, the box will need to be very innovative. We'll chat later. I hear the comment about the importance of ESG, but I just want to leave another perspective that for sustainability, efficiency and effectiveness will always be the most important, because if you don't have those, no organization is going to be sustainable. So what I suggest is that we have to get a balance between the normal operations of successful organizations and the ESG factors, or whatever the latest new trends or concerns might be. And like has been suggested by Bongani and others, get these key factors into the scorecards. And in that way, we'll have sustainable organizations. Just a perspective.
Hello. My name is Ransweu. I'm from Urban Mining Services. Actually, I've got a number of questions. Right? Yes. Well, first of all, Urban Mining Services, right? Basically, we are a company that researches the anthropogenic, right? So, I'm very excited to be here among the guys who do the geogenic, because, that's where the symbiosis is supposed to begin, right? The anthroposphere that you create and the geogenic that creates this anthroposphere. So it's very exciting to be here among you geogenic guys. But then the thing that, is a bit lacking is I hear the technology is there. I expected a bit more than just collision, detection. Yes, it's important, but in terms of the refinery, I expected to hear some technology whereby you've got develop some other reactor or some other thing, right, that can process and help the smaller guys benefit or benefit also from the platinum industry. Now the thing that is encouraging, which is when the gentleman spoke for SMMEs, whereby SMM is their entry. But then he mentions that it's a quarry, right? So again, it's the anthroposphere that we are talking about. That through the anthroposphere, that's where you guys can put in these these SMMEs in order for them to gain. Right now, the thing that I really want to get going is that in terms of the anthroposphere, right? what technologies have you guys put forward, right? In terms of, like, I know in Europe, right, they started this project in 2015, and currently in their mining operations, right, they have said that no, they are doing with their quarries, they are extracting this the minerals that are left, right? Because the quarries are old. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is what to do with these mines that, or these quarries that have been closed. What do you envisage doing with them, right? Are you also going to make game parks or recreational parks, or are you going to come up with something better? Thank you.
Any comment from?
No, not really on the processing. For me, I wanted also maybe start with the first comment that the gentleman made. I'll come to your questions, sir. For me, it's not a matter of a balance between the two. You know, it's a matter of, I think both has to happen. You know, the productivity as well as ESG. And we've seen it in safety that, you know, safe operations are efficient operations. You know, if you are safe, then you by default, you are efficient as well. And if you include the environment in that, then you include governance in that, then even more efficient. So I think both has to, you know, it goes without saying. So fully agree with you, with your comment there. And on the other comments, maybe I'll take one or two of those. That I think you're touching on the, you know, on some of the technologies that are being used, you know, to reclaim dams. And quarries, as you said. And I think that's what I mentioned earlier, to say this is where the key solution lies, wherein we're solving environmental liability issues, but at the same time, as a country, we have to solve social issues. You know, it's not just an issue of clearing the dams, but it's an issue of how do you bring people in the mainstream? You know, instead of just giving people small tenders, you know, how do you ensure that the communities now meaningfully participate, you know, in those dams, while we've got these technologies to reclaim whatever is left there. And I think that's the key. We should not approach it like, you know, with the previous mindset to say some company will come with deep pockets from somewhere else and just reclaim, and the local communities will, you know, only be left with scraps. But we need to now use these opportunities to ensure that there's meaningful participation, you know, from communities, from local SMMEs as well.
I think the problem is a joint one. We can't just leave it to say the government will solve the problem of these mines that are left behind. It's something that I think we have to, as a society, not just as an industry, to tackle together. And I think the experience has shown so far that if we leave it to one party, we won't be successful. The OEMs, the mines, the communities, the activists have to be involved in ensuring that we leave the environment better than we found it.
I think we have time for just one question. And yes.
Thank you very much. Lehlohonolo Moloi from the Mining Equipment Manufacturers of South Africa. Thank you, Sietse, and our colleagues for highlighting the amount of work that's been done in the RDI space by both government and the mining sector. And I think coming back to you, Lebo, my colleague, that, you know, we've got to be practical about when you talk OEMs, because South Africa is unique in the sense that we've got local OEMs, then we've got foreign OEMs. And I think what's also important in that is that the foreign OEMs still have got a lion's share of the mining sector in terms of profits. And I think we would like to probably have a discussion around what, or maybe some commitment from the foreign OEMs about how much money are they going to commit into RDI, especially innovation, because we know that innovation has a ripple effect on a growing economy. And in absence of that, and innovation is being done not in South Africa, but somewhere outside of South Africa where they're making most of their money. And it doesn't make sense. So I think that level of commitment, we'd like to hear from you as the representative of saying, what are you going to do to make sure that innovation stays in South Africa and grows the South African economy? Thank you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Hassim. I am from a company called Communica, we're an electronic component supplier. But my reason for being here is just to understand the contribution that the CSIR is making, and it's been quite enlightening for me. But one of the things that I want to mention that I found very important to talk about is the question of the social impact that mining has and what benefit it can bring to the community around it. I'm going to tell you a quick story. In the 90s, I lived in Harare, and my helper once asked me to obtain some building material that he wanted to take back to his village. So I asked him to get a few quotes and we'll get the building material and get it sent to your village. So he brought me 3 quotes, 2 from a company in the city and 1 from The Wall. And The Wall was the cheapest of the quotes. So I asked him, why is this so much cheaper? Is the quality inferior? So he said, no, the goods are, but they're not made by a factory. So I said, let's go and see what this is all about. And then we drove out on the outskirts on the Bulawayo Road and found a huge precast wall. And with every few tens of meters, there was a little opening in that wall. And it was most enlightening for me to see this. We went into there, and there were people making window frames, door frames, making furniture. And this was a government-supported initiative. Now, I'm thinking that these mining companies benefit a great deal from extracting all our minerals, and they don't have to make a huge investment in the community around them. All they have to do is provide the basic training for making a variety of things, carpentry, maintenance of vehicles. There are a huge amount of vehicles in the mining, the little Toyota buckies that move around and things like that. The people there could benefit from that. And I don't know if that is happening, but if it is not happening, that's something that could happen. So to me, that's a very important thing and quite dear to my heart. So I thought I'll just share that with you. Just quickly on the question of rare earth minerals. The little I know about that is that it's pretty dirty mining from what I've read in the past. So it would create a bigger challenge for restoring the environment to the level that it was before. But I suppose we have to find solutions to that as well. And yeah, thank you very much.
Can I respond to Lihlonolo? Yeah. I think Lihlonolo, you've got a point there, but I did indicate in one of the things that I said there that the OEMs are different. We can't brush them with one brush, the same brush. So it's important that we work together. We have been working very closely with the Minerals Council on a number of initiatives. And I also mentioned about the Wealth Creation Index. So these are the things that will bring transparency in terms of the contribution that the OEMs make, not just to the on the socio-economic front, but also in terms of what they're investing in the local market. There is investment happening. Is it enough? I could agree with you that it's not, and there's more that can be done, and we need to work together, not just as manufacturers, but we need to work together as with government as well, to put in policies that encourage the OEMs and others, of course, other investors to invest in the local economy.